Welcome to Crime Most French, a fortnightly podcast covering intriguing cases carried out on French soil. Researched and narrated by Cedric and rudely interrupted by me, Melanie. We're the true crime podcast on the Alliance. Crack open le vin and let the mayhem commence.
This is episode 84, The Strasbourg Strangler. In 1986-1987, several burglaries in a fairly quiet area of Strasbourg turn into murder. The cops know they have a serial killer on their hands, but they struggle to find who that could be.
So we've got two for it. We've got burglary and
murder.
And murder, oh gosh.
Yes. On the 22nd of January 1986, in Strasbourg, in the east of France, Marion Villain is at home in a ground floor flat with her parents because she's 10. It's a quiet flat. The building is bordering a very big park, so there's no noise, no nothing. It's a quiet area. After having dinner with the rest of the family and a TV cartoon, because apparently they were allowed to watch a cartoon after dinner.
A singular cartoon?
Yeah, there was only one. When I was a kid, it was the same for us. There was a cartoon just before the news, and that was really the time for the young kids to go to bed. So you could watch the cartoon, and when the news started, we went to bed.
I see. I had square eyes when I was a kid. I was watching old TV.
So she went to bed with her sister. Not long after, someone breaks a window and gets into the flat unnoticed. Marion wakes up and sees a shadow above her bed, and suddenly she can't breathe.
My God, that must be terrifying.
Yeah, she immediately thought that she was going to die if she couldn't breathe soon.
Yeah.
And she loses consciousness, and that's it. She wakes up a while later. She's on the floor in the hall of the flat, so not in her bedroom.
Right.
She's cold, and she feels weird. Everything hurts, and she's half asleep, so she just goes back to bed and falls asleep again.
Right, oh no.
In the morning, she wakes up with the sun, and she remembers what happened. She calls her mum and tells her that someone strangled her. They go and see Marion's dad, who's in the living room. There, he is with many men, looking everywhere. They're cops. Because her parents, when they woke up, found that somebody had been in the flat because there's stuff all over the place.
Oh, right, okay.
So they called the cops, but they never looked on the kids.
But they're still alive?
They're still alive, yes.
Because I thought she was going to wake up and everybody was going to be kind of like...
No, everybody's accounted for.
Oh,
she's alive, her sister's alive, her parents are alive.
Well, that's one bright chink in our usually grim stories.
Yes. The parents discovered a broken window and the flat clearly had been burgled.
So she was the only one that had been strangled?
Yes.
Right.
She realizes, seeing people's reaction, that what she felt was visible to them. So she went to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. And she saw that she had bloodshot eyes,
yes,
vessels that have exploded in her eyes. So not just red, like actually blood in the eyes. And she has bruises on her neck.
Yep.
That's what her parents could see. But despite all that, she was very calm. I've seen an interview with her. She didn't panic. She didn't really know what was going on, but she didn't panic. Probably because she didn't really understand what had happened.
I was going to say, you don't get
as a 10-year-old.
You don't get that fear of life until you're much older, until you've seen the ugly side of it.
Yes, yeah. So what happened was that she had been strangled with a rope, left for dead, and raped.
Oh, God, okay.
So the police starts an inquiry, quickly, this time. They look at the broken window and they ask Marion to help create a photo fit of her aggressor.
Right.
Because she saw him, he was above her bed. Over the next few weeks, the cops show a lot of photos to Marion. So they make her go through all the books of
all the regulars that they have on their books, no doubt, yes.
Most of them being known criminals who operates in the area, but she doesn't recognize any of them.
Right.
As the inquiry goes nowhere, the family starts again in their normal life, as if nothing had happened. And that's something that she mentioned in interviews. She thought that when that happened, that it was weird, that everybody was behaving like nothing happened. And that was it. 2 weeks later, the phone rings. Marion's dad picks up.
Mm-hmm.
An unknown voice asks if the little girl that he raped a while back is feeling better.
Oh my God, what an absolute monster.
Luckily, the family's phone was being wiretapped at the time, so the
Right.
cops hear the conversation. However, it's 1986 and the technology doesn't allow finding out where the call came from. So they can't get anything out of it.
Stupid technology.
What they do is they ask a psychiatrist to create a profile for the caller based on the call.
Mm.
And the psychiatrist says that he thinks the guy is young, of average intelligence, arrogant, careful, not trusty, and probably lived with his parents or his mum.
All right, okay, that's a...
Yeah, well, that's
Okay.
that's the profile he came up with.
Right, okay.
His relationship with women would be perverse and sadistic,
Mm.
and the purpose of the phone call was to hurt Marion's parents. Nothing groundbreaking, is pretty much obvious now anyway.
Mm.
That's what the profile is.
And the guy forgot fucked up.
Yes. And that's it, nothing happens after that.
Mm.
On the 17th of March 1986, a new crime is reported about 2 kilometers from Marion's flat. 2 sisters, Martin and Patricia, were attacked in their flat, which was also a ground floor flat.
Mm.
When the cops arrive, they find in the kitchen Martin's body. She's in her nightgown, face down, and near the body they find scissors, tiny sewing scissors,
All right.
and hair. And it turns out, after analysis, that it's Martin's pubic hair. Martin's been strangled with a rope, and she's dead.
Poor woman.
The cops think, we've seen that before,
Yeah.
because they think that Marion survived,
Mm.
but she was left for dead.
Yeah.
So she should have been dead. And that would have been pretty much the same story.
Yeah.
The police think that Martin was attacked in her bedroom, that the aggressor first strangled her in her bed with his hands, and then switched to a rope.
Yeah.
And he strangled her until she died.
It is one of these Hollywood fallacies that you can easily strangle someone. You can't.
With your hands, yeah.
It's
it takes
very,
a long
very
time.
difficult. It's
Yeah.
not a good way to murder someone.
No. The aggressor then went to Patricia's bedroom, the sister.
Mm-hmm.
She was still asleep. She hadn't heard anything. But as he was walking towards the bed, she woke up and started screaming.
Mm.
Apparently, they think that he was surprised. He wasn't expecting it. And fearing that the whole building would wake up, he just took off.
Right.
And in the process, he abandoned his rope and everything he was holding at the time.
Okay. So thankfully, we've got a light sleeper because,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I'm used to hearing noises in the night and waking up very often, so...
When the cops look around the flat, they discover that the toilet's window had been broken.
Right.
That's very probably how the attacker came in.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously immediately connect to Marion's story. The flats were both ground floor, a window was broken with a stone in both cases,
Mm-hmm.
a rope, who seemed to be the same, was used in strangulation every time,
And a sexual assault.
and they were left for dead.
Mm.
In one case, actually dead. So they think that that's the same person.
Mm-hmm.
This time, the murderer left 2 palm prints on Martin's night table. They were very clear.
Mm.
At last, the cops think that they have something. Unfortunately, after a search of the records, which were on paper at the time, they find no match in what they have.
Yeah.
The killer is nicknamed in the press the Strasbourg Strangler. The Robertso is the area of Strasbourg where the
Mhm.
murders happened. And for 2 years, nothing more happens. 2 years later, the cops are getting desperate because they now have a murder, an attempted murder, and absolutely zero lead. So they ask the local news station, France 3, to play a recording of the phone call that Marion's dad received during the news, hoping that someone will recognize the voice.
That must have been chilling to listen to.
Yes, but nobody recognizes the voice.
Mm.
From that point on, the murders become a cold case because there's just nothing.
Mm.
And in fact, over time, it will become the coldest cold case in France. it won't be solved for close to 30 years.
Wow, okay.
In 2006, so
we're
we
in
jump
the
from
noughties.
1986 to 2006.
Yeah.
Philippe Hutinger, that's an organization name, inherits the affair because he starts a new job in Strasbourg. He's the new commander of one of the police stations.
Right.
Generations of cops have inherited it before him,
Yeah.
but nothing has ever progressed in that case.
Always seems to be the way when you get somebody new in a new job, and then they
You give them
suddenly
impossible cases.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they suddenly get the bit between
Yes.
their teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But in this case, it pays off.
that's good.
Because like his predecessors, he doesn't have much to go on and doesn't
No.
progress for a long
No.
time. But after 2 years, in Angers, so 700 kilometers west of Strasbourg,
Yeah, Angers is quite far south, isn't it?
it's north of us. It's essentially the doors of Brittany.
Oh, yes.
That's
Sorry.
when my grandmother's family comes from.
I was thinking the place where the prunes come from.
Oh, Agen. No, Agen is the Pyrenees.
Yes.
That's the other end of the country.
what I was thinking
Yes,
of.
no, it's Angers. So in Angers, a woman enters a police station because she wants to testify against her ex-husband, who says is the Strasbourg Strangler.
Okay,
Hutinger doesn't waste a minute and travels to Angers straight away.
good.
The woman says that she's recognized her ex-husband's voice when she was listening to a local radio station show who played the recording from 1986.
All right.
She says that her ex-husband had talked to her about the Roberto affair before. So didn't actually confess, but talked about it, according to what she says. When asked why she didn't say anything for 20 years, she says that she was afraid that he would try to exert revenge on her if she talked, if she didn't end up in prison straight away. But she left him recently, so she decided to talk to the cops.
I don't think I could stay with somebody half suspecting that they'd done something quite so horrific.
Yeah. So to decide if that's the right person, the cops record the man's voice, the ex-husband's voice,
Yes.
and compare to 1986 recording. And they're clearly not the same person.
Ah, crap. Okay.
So the cops decide that she just wanted to get him into trouble, even though it had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Oh, I see. He wasn't a monster. She was just a vindictive bitch.
She was. So going back to the affair, the cops start over again, because at that point there's nothing else they can do. And they decide that the only thing they have to go on is the set of palm prints they have from the night table. But things have changed since 1986.
Yes.
One of them is that there is now a palm print record, centralized record, created post-2000.
So they've got a database.
They have a database of palm prints.
Right.
And it's now possible to compare those to all the known criminals in the country that have had their palm prints taken. Unfortunately, for 4 years, there's no match. But that changes on the 18th of September 2012. There's a technician who regularly went over prints that had never matched anything, who decides to rotate 180 degrees, those prints.
And so put them upside down.
Essentially put them upside down.
Right.
And there's a match.
Okay, that's weird.
It is weird. But it's not a match because she rotated the prints 180 degrees.
It was just new to the database.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
It just
that
happens
makes sense.
that a guy was just arrested
Uh-huh.
for stealing a wallet in a swimming pool locker room near Bordeaux.
Okay, so he has still moved to the other side of the country then.
Yes. And his prints have been taken because now they were routinely taken and they matched.
Right.
The man was named Nicolas Charbonnier, and now having a name, now the question is, how do you prove that he was first the guy in the bedroom and the guy who committed the murder? He could
these are two different things, aren't they?
Well, he could have been an acquaintance of Martin's, for example, because he lived there at the time and he never pretended that he didn't.
Yeah.
He could have known her, he could have been her boyfriend, he could have been anything. There's tons of reasons why he could have been in that bedroom and touched that table.
Yeah.
So they need to prove that he's the one who killed her. And that's a lot harder. Also, he was only arrested for stealing a wallet in the locker. That's a long way for multiple murder.
Yeah, I mean, it's, escalating is, from physical assault into, killing is
But it's not even physical assault. He just
no,
stole a
that's what
wallet
I'm
from a
saying.
locker.
That's kind of like a natural progression, whereas stealing, being a pickpocket or being a
opportunities-
petty thief to murder, that's a huge leap.
Yeah. Opportunistic theft
Yes.
to actual multiple murder is a very, very big jump.
And sexual, with the sexual assault
Yes, as well.
dimension in it as well.
Yes.
I'm surprised they didn't do a rape kit on the little girl and the
That was 1986. There was
the
no DNA
decedent.
at the time.
Well, they still used to be able to determine blood type and stuff from sperm.
I don't know if they did. I haven't seen any mention that they had done that.
Well, I thought
But
they
even
did,
then,
but-
that would be very fuzzy anyway, because if all they could do is blood type and he was O
Well,
positive,
yeah,
for example, that's 80% of the population. So
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
that's
sometimes
pointless.
all what they had at the
yes,
time.
yeah. But I don't know if they have done it. I haven't
Obviously
seen it.
not if there's
Yeah.
no mention of it.
So the only hope the cops actually have is to make him confess. But he could say, yes, I've been in the room. Yes, I knew her. And it's just somebody I knew and I touched her table.
Mm.
And that would be the end of the story, because if that's all he says, that explains why his prints are there.
Yeah.
So the cops, it's two cops, prepare for the questioning. They spend 4 months preparing for it.
Wow.
They do role plays where one is him, one is the cop,
Okay.
and vice versa. and
So they have various different scenarios.
they prepare every
right.
possible answer he could
Wow.
give them, and how they would push him back into
Yeah.
confessing. So they spend 4 months working on that.
So we often slag off the cops and some of their bad blunders that they make, but that's
Yes.
that's thorough.
And on 21st of January 2013, they're ready to go.
Mhm.
So they go and arrest him in Bordeaux. They surveil him for a little while because he has a family.
Mhm.
And they know that he takes his daughter to school in the morning. So they wait. They follow him as he takes his daughter to school. And as soon as he goes back home, they follow him and arrest him. And he doesn't resist. He doesn't say anything. So after 27 years, at that point, they have a suspect in custody.
Mhm.
So some progress. Once in custody, the cops have 48 hours to make him confess, because after 48 hours, either they have to charge him or let him go.
All right.
That's how it was at the time. I think it's 24 now. So they put in practice their rehearsal. And at first, they don't tell him what they have. So they don't
Right.
tell him they have his prints. They really want to talk him into confessing. So they kind of guide his answers, and they ask questions to try to make him explain why things are the
Uh-huh.
way it is, if he knew them, if he
Mhm.
knew the flat. And so, of course, he denies everything, because they all do every time. But slowly, he starts to admit that he lived in Strasbourg,
Right.
that he knew the area, but he had nothing to do with the murders. Then he says that he met someone who dragged him into doing bad things, like burglaries. And eventually he admits that one of the burglaries that he did with that guy was in Marion's parents' flat.
Right. Okay.
And
He's dumb.
I've seen an interview with the cops, and he said at that point we knew
Yes.
we had him.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It
mean,
was just a
it's-
question of time, because he had now put himself
Yeah.
in a murder
Mm.
scene.
I mean, he's just put one link of the cuff link on him.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's not in the bag yet, but I mean, he certainly.
But
You know.
he would have a hard time explaining
Yes.
how he could have burgled that flat
Yeah.
and somehow not having been the person who killed tried to kill the girl. I'm pretty sure she's alive.
Yes.
So now they're getting somewhere. The same day, Marion gets a phone call. It's an instructing judge that tells her that they think they have arrested the person who attacked her. She still has doubts, but the judge tells her that they have a good amount of evidence, and the cops are convinced that it's the right person, because at that point he said he was in the flat.
Mm.
So even though Charbonnier continues to deny the murders and attempted murders, they tell her that they have someone.
Mm-hmm. He
There-
certainly put himself in the scene of the crime.
Yes. As they question Charbonnier, the cops learn that the arrest has been leaked to the press,
Oh crap!
and that the local TV station will mention it in the evening news. And they're really pissed off.
Yeah, I bet they
Because
are.
at that point, he's not charged yet.
No.
and they are a bit afraid of what would happen with the family if they would somehow come up with alibis, whatever. They don't want people to know about it yet.
No, I mean, you want to, keep your cards to your chest.
Yeah. The journalists dig into the story and they discover that they have a recording on a phone call from 1986 in the archives. It's the same TV station.
Right.
Because France 3 is like a federation of local stations. So it's not them that had the recording originally, it's in Strasbourg.
Right.
But because they have a centralized archive,
and they can have access
the
to
Bordeaux
it.
TV station now has access to the recording and they discover it. In the meantime, the police had the idea of running a wiretap on the whole family, the whole Charbonnier family.
Right.
Because if it's going to leak into the press, they might as well try to get something out of it. So they put the whole family on wiretap.
Wow.
And as soon as it airs on TV, they record the whole family talking about it. And they all say they recognize the voice.
Right.
They know it's Nicolas Charbonnier, in some cases their son, or in some cases their brother.
Yeah.
And the cops are happy with that because now they have a whole bunch of witnesses that confess that, yeah, that's the dude. That's the dude from the phone call. So it turns out to be a good thing that it was shown on TV after all.
Okay.
Charbonnier then is told about all that. And he, at that point, says that, yes, he did some of those things, but he needs time to explain to the cops the details of the story. And also he says he can't remember exactly what happened. He tells them he has some kind of amnesia.
Oh, yeah. That old, I can't quite remember.
Yes. Immediately the judge gets a psychiatrist to try to determine if really he has amnesia or he's just taking the piss. The psychiatrists decide that Charbonnier is lying.
Of course he is.
That he clearly remembers what he did.
Of course he
But he just denies it.
Yeah.
He wants to maintain his image and he just doesn't want to see himself as the monster that he actually is. So he's lying to himself. But he knows. He just doesn't want to admit it.
He doesn't want to admit it to himself.
Yep. So the judge tries to push him by organizing a reenactment in the actual flat where he attacked Marion 27 years earlier. Marion is there, and at first she hides to see him without him seeing her, because she knows he would try to find her in the crowd. And she doesn't know how she was going to react as well.
Yeah, no, I don't know. You just can't even guess how you would react. And
she says in interviews that she just didn't react. She had no feeling whatsoever for against him or for him. It was just a person there, and that was it. And she didn't care.
So it was compartmentalized away in her brain
somehow,
for safety.
Yes,
yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's understandable.
However, even though he explained in detail how he entered the flat, he shows which window he broke, how he broke it, how he got in. We have photos of him in front of that window showing that he climbed into it.
All right.
He still refuses to show what he did to Marion. So it's a cop that takes his place and strangles a mannequin, it makes very weird photos because they took a very weird mannequin. It's like a doll, like a porcelain doll. Right. It's very, very strange.
Weird.
The whole thing lasts 5 hours, but in the end, he still refuses to admit that he tried to kill her. A month later, a woman called Patricia number 2, writes to the prosecutor after she heard about Charbonnier's arrest.
Right.
She explains that she was the victim of an aggressor that had exactly the same MO. And she remembers the shadow above her bed, the rope around her neck. She remembers exactly the same story. She had been waiting for that moment for 28 years.
So this is something the police had kind of missed, presumably.
At the time of the attack, she was 26.
Right, okay.
And she hadn't reported the whole story to the police. That's why they don't know about it.
Ah, right.
She had reported a burglary.
Right.
That was it. Because in the 80s, when a woman reported a rape, she was immediately assumed to be loose and partly responsible for what happened to her.
Oh, bless your heart. You're
80s.
A man. You think it's okay now, do you?
It was much worse at the time.
Right, yeah, maybe.
So she decided not to report it at the time, and that's why the cops don't know about it.
Okay.
So
but yes, it was particularly bad in the 80s.
Yes.
It's still horribly bad, I have to say, as a woman.
Yes. But it's getting better anyway. But at the time, she thought that there was absolutely no way she would get anything out of it. All she would have is a bad reputation, so she didn't report it. So for 28 years, she kept her bedroom's carpet with her, rolled up, because she thought there was DNA in it.
Wow.
So every time she moved house, she
took the carpet.
She took the carpet with her.
Wow, good going, lady.
And it was a big chunk. I think she described it as 4 by 3 meters, so a small bedroom.
Yeah.
But she was traveling with that carpet rolled up with her her whole life. Mm-hmm. And she gives it to the judge. So the judge rushes it for analysis.
DNA. Yeah.
But unfortunately, the results are inconclusive because it's old. Yeah. It's nearly 30 years old. It hasn't been kept in good conditions.
No, it's not. Yes.
And they can't really get anything certain out of it.
Oh, but what a star, though.
Yes, she had a good idea. It's just that it took too long.
If maybe she'd kept it in a bag or something.
I don't know if it would have helped. I have no idea. It's hard to say. But of course, Charbonnier denies that as well.
Yeah.
So it's a dead end. But looking through the archives, the cops discover that they have a report for another attack with the same MO again, in the same area of Strasbourg again, roughly at the same time as the other two.
They seem to be coming out the woodwork now, don't they?
Yes. The victim is called Marie-Paul, and in November 1986, her flat was on the ground floor. Mm-hmm. One of her windows got broken with a stone, and a rope was used to strangle her.
Oh, totally the same.
Charbonnier confesses to that burglary immediately, for some reason.
Weird.
He did enter the flat. He says, yes, it was me. He tried to burgle it, but he fought with her and fled without ever attacking her.
And that's why he was
He says that her injuries were an accident because she fell and bumped her head on a table.
So he can't get done for assaulting her.
Yes, exactly. So that's why he confesses to that one.
Is there some kind of statute of limitations for burglary?
Yes, we'll get into that just in a minute.
All right.
When the cops put on the map only the attacks they know of, there's 4 now. Mm-hmm. They're all within 2 kilometers of the Charbonnier home in Strasbourg.
Right.
The home is not quite in the middle, but very close to right in the middle. So they think that it allowed him to walk to their victim's flat and walk back without ever being noticed because he's just another guy in the street. And also because he didn't take his car or anything like that, he doesn't raise suspicion in his family. No. So that's how they think that he did it.
I mean, that's you get people who kind of like in forensics who just purely work off the geography of cases like this, that they see patterns around about a specific hotspot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Unfortunately, for most criminal affairs, the statutes of limitation in France are 10 years at the time.
Oh, so these are long gone.
These are long gone. There's nothing the cops can do about the 2 Patricias or Marion. That leaves Martin's case. Mm-hmm. Because the prosecuting judge, argues that cutting the pubic hair with tiny pairs of scissors amounts to torture. And if it is torture, then the statutes of limitation are much, much longer.
Right.
So that's how they decide, we have something that is prosecutable in court now. So they now decide, it's valid, and we prosecute. So that's what they do. On the 17th of March 2016, the trial starts in Strasbourg. During the trial, the prosecution goes over Charbonnier's life. So he's a kid from a very Catholic family. They were practicing Catholics. Mm-hmm. His father was apparently a brilliant officer in the army. And all his life, Charbonnier compared himself to his dad.
Oh, God, okay.
And that's why he started a career in the army as well. But he tells the cops, when they questioned him about that he left after 5 years because the army wasn't for him. Of course, they check. They go to the army and say, why did he leave? And the army said they kicked him out because he was a mediocre officer.
Oh, right,
just
okay.
didn't want him.
They've got an entirely different story.
They have a different view on things, yes. And what the psychiatrists think is he went back home to his parents. Mm-hmm. So, of course, he felt like they were disappointed in him.
Right.
And that's where he thinks Charbonnier decided that if he couldn't be the best like his dad, he would be the best in reverse. So instead of being a great officer and a good officer of the law, he would be a good criminal. Mm-hmm. And that's why he started attacking people and raping and killing.
So this is like the good Superman and bad Superman.
Essentially, yes. That's what it is.
Bizarro Spider-Man.
Yes.
Superman.
So in his head, it would be as good as his dad, just a different way. Charbonnier tries to argue that he has two personalities and that they're separate and he doesn't control one of them and all that. And the psychiatrist, no. That is not how it works.
Is that in the same bit of the brain where he has the amnesia?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the psychiatrist says that, like most criminals that have a similar past as him, he has absolutely no guilt, that he knows exactly what he's done, and the double personality thing is bullshit. Charbonnier's ex-wife, testifies in his favor. She explains that for 20 years, Charbonnier was a good husband and everything. And at that point, the cops start getting worried because they don't have a huge amount on him. Yeah. He has never confessed, and now he has people who testify in his favor.
20 years of marriage.
Yes.
I mean, we haven't even done 20 years of marriage yet, so, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But that changes when Marion testifies.
Right. She manages to swing it back, does she?
Yes. And she explains everything, and apparently the whole courtroom was completely silent. Everybody was listening to everything she was saying.
Edge of the seat stuff.
Pretty much. And when she's finished, Charbonnier says that, yeah, okay, I did it, and I'm a monster, and I regret everything I've done.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. That's like a Hollywood movie.
Yeah, totally. That completely changes everything. So at the end of the trial, the jurors start deliberating at 2 p.m. and by 4:15 they come back and they have a verdict of guilty. Mm-hmm. They rejected the defense's argument against extending the statutes of limitation. They said, no, it's perfectly valid.
Okay.
And they say that it's also valid that we heard the story and the victims that were not prosecutable, which was normally doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's the jury
very said,
true,
yeah, it's fine. We're happy to have heard it.
Okay.
And he's sentenced to life in prison.
I mean, let's face it, if they hadn't have heard Marion's story, which technically
it could have gone completely differently, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's it. He's in prison and will stay there for the rest of his life. Yeah. No parole, no nothing.
Well, I think my biggest takeaway from this is if you're going through a divorce, try and keep it amicable because, you know, your ex-partner could be trying to stitch you up for all kinds of shenanigans behind your back after the fact. And also an extra travel tip for you if you ever do visit France and you're in Paris. Remember, there's a lot more to the country than just Paris. Jump on the TGV. It only takes 3 hours or 2.5 hours to get to Strasbourg. Beautiful, beautiful city. Jump on the TGV. You won't be disappointed.